A single night, 3 strikes, multiple deaths and countless injuries. The first, a brazen attack in Ankara which left the Russian ambassador to Turkey dead. Andrei Karlov was only minutes into his inaugural speech at an art exhibit in the Turkish capital when he was shot multiple times. In video footage of the act, the assassin, Mevlut Mert Altınas, a 22-year-old off-duty policeman, reportedly can be heard shouting, quote, "Don't forget Aleppo, don't forget Syria," unquote. He was neutralized shortly after. Russia was quick to call the act an attempt to destabilize the peace process in Syria. In Germany, a truck hurtled through a crowd of Christmas shoppers in Berlin, killing 12 and injuring at least 50 others. The attack was claimed by the Islamic State. German authorities have reportedly made an arrest but are not sure if they have the culprit just yet. Meanwhile, in Zurich, a gunman opened fire on an Islamic center, injuring three people, two seriously. Police are yet to reveal details about the attacker, who was found dead near the scene of the attack. And our bureau chief Aanchal Vora joins us from Beirut right now. She is in Lebanon, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about what exactly has happened in terms of Turkey. Aanchal, how badly would the assassination of the Russian ambassador to Turkey impact what's already a really fragile security situation in West Asia?
Well, the security situation is fragile, and it continues to be, and it all essentially will constantly takes us back to Aleppo. How so? I'll talk about that in a minute. But before that, specific to your question, Russia and Turkey's relationship has been sour for some time, at least since late 2015, when the Turkish took down a Russian plane, and the Russians weren't pleased with that. The Turkish, of course, then said that the Russian plane had come in. Essentially, what's going on is Russia has been supporting Bashar al-Assad and Turkey has been supporting other rebels. But how would this assassination impact the fragile security situation when it comes to these power centers that are emerging? It is also important to, at this moment, consider that over the last few months, Russia and Turkey have been doing some soft talk towards each other. We've seen when Turkish President Erdogan was coming under criticism globally, Putin stood by him. And now what we're learning is that there seems to be some sort of an understanding between Russia and Turkey. Russia and Syria, which is Assad, Bashar al-Assad, keep Aleppo, whereas Al-Bab, which is where the Kurdish people live, and Turkey is upset with the popularity and the strength, increasing strength of these Turkish groups, I beg your pardon, Kurdish groups, and there's been some sort of an understanding there. Keeping all of that in mind, if you look at the statements that have come out from Russia after the assassination of the ambassador in that unfortunate event, they've been pretty soft. Russia hasn't said anything extreme except for saying that they will continue to fight terror together.
Right, Aanchal, there's also, mention of that attack brings up the other one that took place in Berlin just yesterday. 12 people have died, 50 others have been injured when that truck rammed through Christmas shoppers in the city. Keeping this entire situation in mind, how do you see this impacting the refugee situation in Germany?
Well, in Germany and in Lebanon and in several other parts of the world, we've seen the hate speech through the last year. We've seen fear-mongering, and what happens through such incidents is, if you remember, the same a similar attack had took place on Bastille in Nice in France, and even though the German investigators are still investigating who actually was behind it, the fact of the matter is that this does give the extreme set of people who are against the refugees, against those helpless people moving in to these relatively safer countries, much more difficult. It's happened in Germany. It's certainly going to pick up pace. We'll have to wait and watch out how it impacts Angela Merkel's campaign. She's already started saying things that seem that she is already concerned about her prospects of coming back to power. If you look at Lebanon, where I am right now, 1 million plus refugees are here as well. 1 million are in Germany, and a little more than that are here in Lebanon as well. And they've been, through policies, the government here has also been trying to curtail that inflow into Lebanon, whether it's been asking everybody above the 15 years of age to be giving $200 a year, or asking or making it difficult for them to take a residency permit. So these countries come under criticism, but they also have their internal domestic situations to deal with, what it would certainly do, the attack in Germany, is make it difficult
Sure.
for leaders and politicians who want to welcome the refugees in. That is going to become more difficult.
Achal Vora there in Beirut, our bureau chief for West Asia. Thanks so much for joining us with those details. We appreciate the time that you've given us. Speaking of terror, Bangladesh police have arrested 2 members of an Islamist militant group for the July 1st terror attack on a cafe in Dhaka, in which 22 people were killed. Officials say 2 suspects, aged 21 and 28, both members of a faction of the Jamaatul Mujahideen, Bangladesh, have been arrested. Money, jihadi books, leaflets and sharp weapons were recovered from these suspects. The Islamic State had claimed that the attack, the worst in Bangladesh so far, police have killed at least 42 suspected Islamists in raids since that attack in July. All right, for more on that story, let's go across to our Dhaka bureau chief, Saad Hamadi. He joins us for more. Saad, this recent spate of attacks in Turkey and Berlin can't but help us remind or connect us to the vulnerable situation that's taking place globally. How exactly is Bangladesh taking on the threat of terror in the country?
There's a strange feeling out on the streets of Dhaka. Security is tighter than before. Many youths from affluent background in Dhaka city remain missing. The police is on a high alert. And although they have retaliated almost instantly after the July attack by arresting suspects and launching counter-strikes and counter-attacks on militants, the security analysts fear that the threat is far from over. They fear that the attackers have gone on a hibernation and they can come back if they find the police or the security of the country in an off-guard situation.
Right, Saad, but the government in Bangladesh maintains that militants are homegrown. Now, what significance does that have when we look at everything from a more global sort of perspective?
Well, the government and law enforcement maintain that these attackers in Bangladesh are homegrown. When we see attacks carried out across the world by these jihadists and they have a similar nature, Bangladesh is not an exception. And although these attackers might be homegrown, which is not substantiated essentially, the law enforcement have not been able to verify why these attacks are carried out, although they have said that some of these attackers have a connection with political parties or the Islamist political parties in the country. It also cannot be brushed aside that these attackers have an influence of the global jihadists.
Right, Saad Hamadi there. Thanks so much for joining us with those details. In fact, I'm being told that even our bureau chief, Mandy Clark, is joining us right now from London for more on this entire imprint of terror, really, that's made its mark again on the intervening night of Monday. Let's go across to Mandy right now for more. Mandy, keeping what's happened in Turkey and in Switzerland and, of course, in Germany in mind, what is the big story on the street when it comes to London?
Well, the main story here is the Berlin terror attack. Now, many British feel great sympathy towards the German people, but they're also very worried a similar attack might happen here. Now, I've already spoken to some British people who say they're not planning to go any area where there will be large crowds like London's Oxford Street out of concern of a terror attack. And you have to remember the Brexit vote happened during the height of the migrant crisis. And a key reason many people say that they voted to leave the European Union is because they wanted greater control over their borders.
Right, Mandy, keeping all that in mind, how serious is the terror threat right now in Britain, especially keeping Germany in mind?
Well, the terror threat is currently set at severe, meaning a terror attack is likely to happen on British soil. Now, the top spy, which is the head of MI6, has come out and said that Britain has foiled around 12 terror attacks in the last 3 years. But the Chief Staff of Defence, who is Stuart Peach, has warned of the threat of terrorists hiding in plain sight among refugees. And so Britain is really on high alert.
All right, Mandy Clark there in London. Thanks so much for joining us with that update. We're going to take a quick break right now, but we'll be back with much more on the other side. Don't go anywhere.